Tonight, a Boomtown Special report focused on bringing you the latest on rapid growth in the inland Northwest.
We're bringing you stories from eastern Washington and North Idaho as our region navigates these changes.
I think the situation is more dire now than it even was then.
It's such a beautiful sign of growth, and I'm so excited to be a part of it.
We're seeing change across the community here in Kootenai County every single year. No one would have ever guessed this was going to happen 20 years ago.
Decades of growth and change impacting housing, transportation, and the way of life around the inland Northwest. Thank you for joining us on the special Boomtown edition of KREM 2 News. I'm Mark Hanrahan.
And I'm Whitney Ward. In our ongoing Boomtown series, we dig deeper into the impacts of our rapid growth.
One of the biggest stories we continue to track in this series is the construction of the North-South Freeway in Spokane and the funding. For decades, we have done hundreds of interviews on the North-South Freeway, holding politicians accountable, getting you answers, and talking to people affected by this project.
And sometimes we have to look back to see how we got here. KREM 2's Tim Pham went into the KREM 2 archives and got new perspective on the North-South Freeway project today.
On the front page of the 7-cent Spokane Daily Chronicle in 1957, a March snowstorm blasts the inland Northwest, and a freeway route may be decided by a 5-man panel. Yes, they were talking about the North-South Freeway.
Stage 2 would go out for construction.
Terrence Lynch is WashDOT's project engineer for the NSC. He says the goal then and still today is to take some of the burden off of the arterials.
To relieve congestion and move, people and freight from point A to point B much faster than using Division Street.
KREM TV first went on the air in 1954. I decided to go into the KREM 2 archives to see what I could find.
The church known for the messages on its signs. Yesterday, it held its last service at the corner of Freya and 4th.
This is where the interchange for I-90 and the North Spokane Freeway will be.
Today, Paul Rodkey took me to where the church once stood. The state bought their property 15 years ago. I showed him the footage from their last service.
Did it bring any emotions, any good memories?
Oh, just good memories, because congregations are the church. It's not the building, it's the people. They had an aerial picture of like the changes that the North Spokane corridor was going to make. And I looked down there and I saw that Bethany indeed was in the footprint of that. There's going to be a big pillar right here supporting the on-ramp that goes to I-90 East.
WashDOT estimates they've held more than 600 public meetings connected to the freeway. There was even a proposal to make Division a one-way until the freeway was complete. But the problem with that...
Going up Division, light after light after light after light.
Rossi laid out his transportation plan.
Dino Rossi, Washington's top Republican candidate in 2008 for governor, said then, if elected, he would have finished the North-South Freeway.
Do you believe that statement still?
Oh, absolutely. It's still necessary. The northeast corner of the state's pretty well neglected, it seems like. My feelings towards this corridor haven't changed. I think the situation is more dire now than it even was then.
Well, people have been waiting years, even decades, for the North-South Freeway to open. Now that a stretch finally has, there's nobody on it.
And we shot that in the middle of the road, standing in a lane, and I never had to dodge a car. After all of that hype, nobody seemed to care because it didn't get to anywhere that anybody needed to go.
This is former KREM 2 reporter William Pitts. He's covered the freeway project extensively for years. He's now a reporter for our sister station in Phoenix.
I mean, I've been in Phoenix for 12 years. We've built 2 freeways in the time that I've been here. And you guys are still trying to get another 5 miles done on that freeway.
Some would say the biggest hurdle for the project is funding and the back and forth to push the project through. Like in 1974, funding was actually deleted entirely from the budget, or in 2003 when a 5-cent gas tax was imposed. But the biggest funding accomplishment came in 2015 when the legislature passed the Connecting Washington Revenue Package, fully funding the project.
But they spread the money out over 14 years. So 2015 to 2029.
But now, with Governor Inslee's latest budget proposal, that funding could be in jeopardy.
And funding to finish the last several miles of the North-South Freeway is again in question in the state legislature, and it could push back the completion date more than a decade from now. So here's what I learned about the latest effort to make sure that project keeps moving forward.
It is perhaps the longest running project in Spokane history that still isn't finished. So when Washington Governor Jay Inslee released his proposed biennial budget with no funding for the North-South Freeway over the next 4 years, reactions came swift and strong.
I thought someone was pulling my leg.
Jack Green is the owner of the wildly popular Green's Fresh Market in Hilliard, a neighborhood anxious for that freeway project to finally be finished. He says he's frustrated a pause was ever being considered.
It just makes you feel like this side of the state doesn't count. You know, that there's more people, more money, more projects on the other side. So, you know, where can we pull it from? And it always seems to be over here.
But State Representative Marcus Riccelli tells me he's confident the project funding will get put back in the budget before it's approved by the legislature later this spring.
I don't think there's any way that we're going to get out of session here with it being paused. I think it would cost significant dollars in the long run. It'd hurt our economy. At the end of the day, you know, I've worked with Senator Billig and Representative Ormsby to put out strong statements saying where our position is. I'm also working now in a bipartisan fashion with Republicans from the local area to sign a letter to Transportation Chair Jake Fye to let him know exactly where we're coming from.
One of those Republicans is State Senator Mike Patton of Spokane Valley.
You've seen the construction. If you go right down to Mission and Green, of course, you got on stilts the freeway right where it stops. And we're going to leave it like that for 6 years or 10 years? You'd think we'd be a third world country if we did that. I think the governor's budget is a proposal. I don't think that portion of it has been well received. And I think that that work will continue on.
By the time the budget is getting approved, what do you imagine it looking like? Do you think that the completion deadline gets moved back a few years?
Well, yeah, obviously it's frustrating. I worked in our last session to speed up implementation of the project. The reality is we've seen workforce challenges across the board, supply chain issues. So it needs to be the correct spend or right spend. So what I would see is probably a right sizing of what we're able to spend in the next 2 or 4 years.
Last year, Representative Riccelli had suggested the project could be completed as soon as 2026. Now it's looking like it might be closer to the original completion date of 2030 or even later.
This project is arguably the most important transportation link since Interstate 90 came through.
Just a few weeks ago, Spokane Mayor Nadine Woodward testified before the Senate Transportation Committee, saying any pause in construction would negatively impact the entire region's economy.
It is critical infrastructure to Spokane and would be a major, major blow to our economy.
Meanwhile, business owners like Jack say they have no choice but to wait a little longer.
I constantly have people asking, you know, why don't you open up a place on the South Hill or out north? And because it's inconvenient for me to get here. This would make it very convenient.
State lawmakers are expected to approve their final budget by April or May of this year, and then it will go to the governor for his signature, and then the new budget officially takes effect on July 1st.
All right, coming up next, a battle in North Idaho over the future of hundreds of acres of land.
We understand the plea for more housing. However, Kootenai County Land Company and future residents of Coeur d'Alene will not bear the burden of this project.
Why people in Coeur d'Alene are against a new housing development.
As part of our ongoing Boomtown series, we're taking a closer look now at a proposed housing development named Coeur d'Alene.
Neighbors have been very vocal about the traffic and crowding issues that it could cause. The development plans are replacing a field off Hutter Road with thousands of new homes, apartments, and businesses. People who live near the proposed site say their peaceful neighborhood will pay the price.
A single meeting surrounding that project was 6 hours long. Dozens of people testified against that plan during that meeting.
I have been kind of heartbroken as I've been talking with some of my neighbors and heard them say that they're glad that they're pretty sure they're going to be dead before they experience most of the fallout that they expect from this decision.
The Cortair developers say the project would create an estimated 900 new jobs and $4.4 million in annual tax revenue for the city. They argue it addresses housing that is in short supply in Coeur d'Alene.
And what's interesting is first-time buyers are pretty much looking at the same house product that seniors are looking at. So smaller, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single level, flat, moderate-sized pieces of property that they can manage and afford to get into or afford to downsize to.
The city's planning commission did approve the annexation of that field as well as zoning changes last October. But before the project can move forward, city council members have to do the same. And so far they have delayed that decision at least twice.
Another area experiencing growing pains in North Idaho, the Coeur d'Alene Airport in Hayden.
Yeah, there has been recent interest in building a commercial terminal at COE. Commercial air travel stopped in the early 90s, but with a growing population in Hayden and Coeur d'Alene, there is a new plan to try and bring it back.
Virginia-based AV Ports would be the ones to build a temporary terminal on the airport's east side. That facility would be 2 gates, approximately 20,000 square feet with those 2 gates.
The east side is intended to be a short-term facility to prove the market out. So can we get to 5 flights a day? I mean, that's a basic question before we can spend the kind of capital it takes to build a more permanent facility.
However, the proposal hit a snag in December with the Kootenai County Board of County Commissioners putting that proposed development and lease on hold.
Some concerns have been the lack of an airline as well as the impact it could have on traffic patterns. As for now, Avport say they are going to take their time with both meeting with airport stakeholders and with the planning.
And the border between Washington and Idaho creates a unique situation for the communities on both sides. One major way the states differ is minimum wage.
Washington state sits just behind the District of Columbia for the highest minimum wage in the nation. But just over the border in Idaho, the bare minimum has been stagnant for more than a decade now. It is a stark reality for Idaho businesses. The latest numbers from the Idaho Department of Labor show that in 2019, more than double the number of people commuted from Kootenai County into Spokane than vice versa. And the growth of big business in Idaho is also an added strain. Corporate employers coming in paid $20 an hour, something many smaller shops just can't match.
What's ultimately happening for some of these smaller businesses, they're resorting to reduced hours. They're resorting to more work hours for the owners, things like that. It is a challenge.
But it's not all positives for Spokane. The higher pay in Washington can make it a less enticing location for businesses who are not willing to pay out the higher wages. Currently, Idaho state law restricts any county from increasing the minimum wage higher than the state average of $7.25 an hour.
And coming up after the break, we're getting a look inside construction of the new downtown Spokane Stadium.
It comes together a lot faster than you think.
The impact this project will have on the community and surrounding businesses when we return. As we continue our Boomtown coverage, one of Spokane's largest projects is now just a few months away from hosting Friday Night Lights. The downtown stadium has been years in the making and will serve as a multi-use venue. Brandon T. Jones has more now about the impact this project will have on the community and surrounding businesses.
You could just tap right there.
Julie Norris has dreamed of this for years.
Okay, separate checks, awesome.
Greeting customers as they walk through the doors of her very own restaurant in the city. That means everything to her.
Spokane is really my life.
Casa is the fulfillment of that vision Julie has worked to create. Her newly opened business is just a few months old, but the location where they set up shop is something she thinks customers will truly appreciate, especially with its proximity to Riverfront Park and new projects being built.
There's so many cool things happening with the stadium, with the podium, events at the arena.
Those surroundings and the growth are something Julie says she's excited about. Just yards away from the restaurant is a new sporting and entertainment venue that'll open this fall.
It comes together a lot faster than you think.
And while construction continues, the vision is already clear for Greg Forsyth.
Right below us is the center entrance tunnel. So this is where the soccer teams will walk out.
As the director of capital projects for Spokane Public Schools, Greg has watched the stadium turn from an idea to revamp Joe Albee back in 2015 into what's now being built downtown. The $37 million investment will eventually be able to occupy up to 12,000 people between the stands and field capacity. School and public facility officials anticipate the project will generate $11.4 million in positive annual economic impact.
So we're still on schedule of opening late September, early October. We won't make the first football games, but we'll certainly make some football games within the field this year.
High school football, concerts, and the United Soccer League will all be included in the stadium's usage. On top of that, Greg says the hope is that a more central downtown location will provide better access to parents and families who would like to attend sporting events.
We're excited for our families to be able to experience a game on Friday and then still go downtown and have a meal.
As for business owners like Julie, she's looking forward to new customers who may discover her restaurant before or after the events held at the stadium.
So I think all of us are a little bit better at our to-go game now.
She says experience from the podium and the arena have helped her get prepared for what's to come in the future.
And it's such a beautiful sign of growth, and I'm so excited to be a part of it.
And coming up in just 3 minutes, a look at one of Spokane's most historic neighborhoods seeing new growth.
Years ago, it was a lot of bars, a lot of, riffraff. That's changed.
Finally tonight, with new buildings and housing developments going up in one of Spokane's most historic areas, what's old is new again.
So to round out our continuing Boomtown coverage, KREM 2's Cody Proctor takes a look at what's being done to brush off the dust in Hilliard and bring some shine to the neighborhood.
Walk into Mr. Ken's barbershop on Market Street, and you just might find Yoda and his person, Brandon Masney. They're a staple in downtown Hilliard at a place Masney calls a good old-fashioned neighborhood barbershop.
It's been a shop for over 100 years. We have only had 4 owners. We're currently on our 4th owner.
With longtime customers.
How long have you been coming here?
Since Ken. Since Ken? So the 90s?
It's a beloved spot in the community. It's also getting a new neighbor. Well, neighbors. Meet Dave Musser.
This is going to be fun. This is going to be soft seating back here. This is planning for the future.
He and his wife Brianna are the owners of Bellwether Brewing and owners of the historic United Building. Built in 1920, the building used to be the United Hilliard Bank. Now it's going through a revival.
We wanted to do a second location, and this building came available, but it's way too big for just a tap room. And so we invited friends with us to do a collaborative space.
Those friends include Victor Lewin of Locos and Derailer Coffee's Jeff Parker. It's a partnership dating back to the spring of 2020. Since then, there's been a lot of work done.
We've had to sprinkle the whole building, which made us have to tear up Market Street and connect to the main water there.
And there's still plenty to do.
We're still looking at putting in our dish pit, our sinks, finishing up the electrical.
But they're getting closer to opening up the United Building to the public. And they're not the only ones. Just down the street, work's underway at the Old Masonic Temple to open up the Bison Bar. Other newly renovated places also include a former library branch now home to the restaurant The Bad Seed. For Jack Green, owner of Green's Fresh Market,
We're seeing a lot of new faces in the neighborhood.
they're welcome changes for a community that's seen both crime and poverty.
Years ago, it was a lot of bars, a lot of, riffraff. That's changed.
The work being done with the United Building certainly made Masney a fan.
I love it. I love it. I love the work. I love people coming in and giving a facelift to old buildings. I'm a huge fan of antiques and vintage stuff. I love old buildings. Tell me a house has an open floor plan and I'm not interested at all.
Yet for all the excitement next door, he has worries.
My fear is that management companies are going to come in and revitalize it and raise the rents. There are a lot of small businesses in Hilliard, a lot of family-run businesses, and if they come in and raise the rents, it could very well put a lot of those people out of business.
Masney says the current rent for the barbershop ranges from $800 to $1,500 a month since they pay on a percentage. According to the most recent commercial real estate report from the National Association of Realtors, the current market rent per square foot for retail space in the Spokane Valley metro area is $15.
And this shop is only 400 square feet. So if you do the math, that's a couple to a few $1,000s a month.
Actually, based on the math, it'd be closer to $6,000 based on the market rent.
That is well above what you guys are paying right now.
Oh yeah, well above, well above. We may not be able to stay in the neighborhood either, which would take away access to a grooming type situation for low-income people.
It's something Lewin, who's lived in Seattle and saw the changes made to Ballard, doesn't want to see happen.
I'd be heartbroken to see that happen in this neighborhood. I still think there's a lot of very hardworking people here that have those dreams of being able to do something like this.
But as with anything in Hilliard, only time will tell.
That's going to do it here for us on this special edition of KREM 2 News.
Thank you so much for watching our Boomtown Special. We hope you have a good day.